Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Monday, the 7th of February, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. I really am. I'm glad to have you guys here. Thank you for tuning in. Now, the first thing I want to say is, it's kind of a sad day, actually. You know, if a man was out traveling through the desert, and he had a jerry can full of water, and if something were to happen, a crack perhaps in the bottom of his jerry can, all his water leaked out into the desert, that man is in a very dangerous situation, you know. And up here in the far north, up here in Canada, you know, we get cold. I mean cold. It's like the desert. And the fact that if you don't have a heat source on a very cold night here in Canada, your life is in jeopardy, just like a man's jerry can is empty of water in the desert. Why it's, for me, it's sad. And it's a loss, I see it as a loss of a moral compass by law enforcement to try to take people's heat away in the middle of a cold Canadian night. To try to use their power to try, I don't know if they're successful or not, but to try to take people's heat away from them on a cold Canadian night is like taking somebody's water away from them if they're out in the desert, or if they're in a boat way out in the ocean, to take their boat away. Or can you imagine if the Coast Guard come up and there was people in a sinking boat and they just drove off and left them there? What do you expect's going to happen? What do you expect's going to happen if you take somebody's jerry can away and they're out in the middle of the desert and they don't have any water then? What do you expect's going to happen? I see this as a loss of a moral compass. I know there's a battle going on between the forces who out there who want one thing and other forces want another thing. I know this is going on. But, you know, just like any fight, and it's a fight, just like any fight, two boxers go into the ring, they have gloves on and stuff, they tell them, hey, you know, don't pull off the gloves, don't hit below the belt, and so on and so forth. They tell them these rules. There's rules of engagement. There's rules in a war. When you go into a war, there's a Geneva Convention. There's rules to war. I mean, they're just not allowed to if prisoners give up and put up the white flag and they take capture prisoners, they're just not allowed to abuse those prisoners if they feel like it. You know? Anyway, this is sad. It's really sad. Let's get the charts started. Let's open up the charts right here and take a look. We're seeing the silver, I almost said oil, but it's actually silver price go up today. You know? 45 cents. She's up. Silver's up 45 cents today. At $22.95. It's almost $23. I'm going to tell you guys something else here. The legacy financial system, they're slowly but surely losing control over it. It's not working. Manipulation, financial and manipulation, or financial engineering to run markets and stuff is not working. And it's spinning out of control. They're going to lose control over the bond market pretty soon. And then they're going to have to enforce control over the bond market with something that's called yield curve control. They'll be forced to. When that happens, then I do believe cryptocurrencies is going to step into the breach at that point in time. I'm not talking about going down. I'm talking about explosive moves to the upside after they put it in state yield curve control. Here's the thing, guys. Gold and silver, too. Explosive moves to the upside. Here's the thing, guys, in a nutshell, is something has happened that I've noticed in the past week. that I was hoping wouldn't happen. Only for one reason why I was hoping it wouldn't happen is because of what it's going to do to our system. The legacy financial system is huge and sprawling, and it's in every corner of the earth, every nook and cranny. Mostly the dollar. It's how trade is done, and it's also how all value on everything is assessed. We got Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies now, rooting themselves. I'll call it rooting themselves. There was a long period of time where Bitcoin transactions could be made, but companies like BitPay would instantaneously convert those transactions into fiat, and fiat was a real underlying asset class being used in the transactions. It wasn't cryptos. But what's happening now is something I've been frightened would happen. Is cryptos are rooting themselves, and they're starting to be used as a means of exchange, completely bypassing the legacy financial system. In other words, instead of making a transaction and using BitPay or something to convert those coins, those blockchain coins, into fiat currency, fiat's being completely bypassed now in a number of countries. Some countries are leading the way in this. Countries like Vietnam and countries like don't leave America behind. America's moving toward this too. And they don't convert into fiat anymore. They're being used as money. This could spread very quickly around the world. And if it spreads too quickly, this is the danger. Because we got a legacy financial system that is basically in tatters and only going to get a lot worse. It's going to hyperinflate. The whole thing's going to hyperinflate. There's no way out of this. The Fed's trapped. They can only continue to create more monetary units. This is the only thing they can do other than have the whole system implode. In fact, the whole system is in danger of imploding. The only thing that they can do is keep kicking the can down the road. And what that entails is them creating more debt. Well, the system's saturated with debt already. And as they create more debt, more pressure builds for the whole thing to implode upon itself. And this is just a vicious cycle that can't end. It can't end. And so the dollar's going to be worth. We've seen this happening all the way back to 1914. We can see how much of the dollar's been eroded in value. They only got a couple percent left. And now they're eroding that. It's on its way to zero. And those last little bits are going to go faster and faster. That's the whole thing. Basically, the Titanic is sinking, guys. It's going to take a while to sink. You know, on a big ship like that, they can come up on deck and everything's like flat and level and everything seems normal. And everything's perfect. And they say to them, hey, this ship is sinking. Where? I don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah, but it's sinking. Trust me, it's sinking. The guy will tell them, right? It's taking on water. And at first they don't see it. Hours can pass. Because some of these ships are so big, they can take on water for hours before finally they do something called listing. And what that means is the ship starts to tilt because of all the water it's taken on. Still, it doesn't sink. It can go for a long time, hours, even after it lists. Well, this is a ship we're on right now, and we haven't seen it list yet. It hasn't really listed yet. It hasn't fell over on its side yet. No, it hasn't. But it's still upright. But I'm here telling you guys it's taking on water from multiple different sources. There's no way out of this. Eventually, this legacy financial system is going to sink, but it might take a few years. It's so big, it's so expansive, and it takes so much to kill it. But these idiots out there are slowly but surely ruining it, destroying the legacy financial system. And that's because it was set up wrong originally to begin with. It was set up as a Ponzi scheme. And all Ponzi schemes have to end. I know I've been preaching this to you guys, but honest to God, you have no idea the ramifications involved in your lives and everybody else's lives you know when this thing finally sinks. Because it's going to have to make a transition, make way for a new financial system. And the door is open to cryptos. And I'm afraid unless they shut that door soon, everybody's going to start to go through. In fact, they're going to mad rush to that door to pass through that door. And they're going to block the doorway. There's just so many of them going to be trying to pile out. And then things start to happen fast. Uh, when the system shuts down, and shuts down on itself, it's going to be a frightful thing. Because parts of it are going to die. It all depends on what area you're in. In this dying system, it's not going to be able to support what it was able to support when it was up and running at its peak, and let's say 2019 was a peak system, and now it's already been starting to shrink back. We see closed buildings everywhere, out for lease, buildings for lease. We see a system that's shrinking. Well, it's going to shrink an awful lot faster when the financial system goes down. And we're going to have dead areas. Basically, there's going to be areas, and what's going to decide these dead areas and the live areas within the system is the power supply, if they still have power or not. That's what's going to decide it. And they're not going to be able to keep the grid up in all areas when the financial system goes down. And if you happen to be in one of those areas where it's grid down, it ain't coming back on ever. It's done. There'll be too much lawlessness break out in those areas that the system loses control over, and there's going to be dead parts of the system. Anyway, so we're looking at a silver price today. It's up 41 cents, which is a good little hike for silver and gold. But, you haven't seen nothing compared to what's going to happen when they have to control the bond market, which is coming. And this isn't way out there. This is coming pretty soon. They either control the bond market through yield curve control, or they let yields rise, and if yields rise, it would be disastrous for the financial system. And that's right ahead of us, just in the next several months. That's what's going to happen first. That's the first thing that's going to happen. But we see seeds of discontent within the people around the world. Well, that might pass away, and settle back down again for a little while, but behind the scenes, that discontent will be growing, even if it does settle down. That discontent will be growing, and when the hyperinflation starts to hit, it's going to roar back with a vengeance of probably a magnitude 10 times greater than it is now, because people are going to start to have trouble feeding themselves. And then we're going to see real, it's going to be, basically, ever heard the old saying, it's going to be on, baby, on, between, and it's going to be a mess. And this is going to be part of what's going to help break the system apart in places. Not going to be able to support. The system's not going to be capable of supporting 8 billion people. It's just as simple as that. Because it's disorganized, the system, for civilization to work properly, it has to be organized, and it has to have a good monetary system, good structure to the monetary system. We don't have either. This system's becoming disorganized, a confused mess, and the monetary system's going down at the same time, slowly but surely. So it's sinking. We've caused our own demise in this system. I shouldn't say we, they. They have caused our demise in this system. And there's no accountability for them because they have so much power. And when they're cornered, what do? They attack back. And some of their attacks can be such vicious and ludicrous and without any moral compass. Because they're in a position where they want the people to deem that they can do nothing wrong They're white and pure like lilies of the field, you know. But that's not the way they are. They really are as totally corrupt and out for their own self-interests. Anyway, so we got a silver price. It's up 40 cents today. Let's take a look at gold today. Gold today is up $8.60 at 1817. Let's take a look at cryptocurrency today. And cryptos has been moving up too a little bit. We've cracked the $2 trillion mark again, guys. With crypto, 43,682 for Bitcoin today, which is good, you know. Let's take a look now at Dow Jones. I'll tell you, I remember talking about this years ago, and saying that Bitcoin was going to take over the world. Its job and what it's going to do and what it means to do if it's not stopped is take over the entire financial system, the legacy financial system, destroy the legacy financial system, and set up a new financial system. I've been saying that. Back when I was saying it years ago, it seemed like such a remote possibility. Even though I was saying it, the words are coming out my mouth, I was like, could this really happen? I was thinking to myself. Now, when I see countries starting to use it as a means of exchange and not totally bypassing the legacy system. In other words, they're not like BitPay where they go ahead and they make a transaction in cryptocurrencies and then they instantly convert it back into fiat. No, they're starting to make transactions and starting to use it as for what it is, money. You see that happening. The handwriting's on the wall. And suddenly, something that seemed like it was going to be remote, maybe it would happen, maybe it wouldn't, and years ago when I was talking about it, now seems like the big likelihood that it will happen. We're so much closer to it happening. What would a world look like where cryptocurrencies are the financial system, and the legacy financial system has basically lost control because it was nothing more than a big Ponzi scheme with no value or behind it, just a bunch of hot air? What would that world look like? Not good. Sadly to say, at least because the bad players are going to make it. They're going to utilize it just like they utilize everything else. The world has to be rooted out of corruption, has to be rooted out of this world. You know, and at the top, the corruption's at the top. And it's at the top of the financial system. It's at the top of the feeding chain here. It's become corrupted. And this is what a big part of the reason why the whole thing's going down. But it's sinking slowly, guys. Don't get your hair in a knot or anything, because it's not sinking fast. It's sinking slowly, but you got to understand the last little bit goes fast. And so this is your time, and it's been your time for the last few years to prepare. And preparing can enrich you too, because earlier in my show, going back a couple years ago, you know, people that listened and heeded the things that I said, some of them have made some pretty darn good gains because they've started to prepare early. The earlier you prepare, the better off you're going to be when this financial system goes down. And it's still way early, not too late. It's still, when it comes to Bitcoin being used as money, it's just beginning now. It's starting to be used as money and not a means of exchange that's connected to the legacy system. It's just starting to move out on its own as its own financial system rather than having any connection to the legacy financial system. See, Bitcoin has been weaning itself off of the legacy financial system, starting to really wean itself, and now it's starting to stand on its own. It's like a little kid, you know, that's taking his first steps. Well, a little bit later in life, he might be a marathon runner, you know, but he's just taking his first weebling steps where he's kind of nearly fallen and everything else, you know, those first steps a child takes. That's what Bitcoin's doing right now. It's taking its first steps. I mean, a couple years ago when I was talking about Bitcoin, it was still nursing. Anyway, let's move on here. We're taking a look at the Dow Jones down 33 points today. And we're going to take a look at crude oil, which is down 65 cents, 91.66. Move index today, and it's going up. It's at 87.68. It's not going up sharply, though. We're going to keep our eye on it. And this is where we really got to watch right here, is these U.S. Treasuries. I notice they're moving down today, but it's insignificant compared to the moves we've seen to the upside. I figure just under 2% on the U.S. 10-year, and we're going to have priced in the second cut that the Fed's doing. Now, the third cut's coming. They're going to keep pricing in these cuts, and it's going to keep creeping up higher. And at a certain point, it could actually start to explode to the upside when the realization out there is made that the inflation is not transitory. When they realize inflation's not transitory. See, the bond market right now, they're in this period where they're all like, they're like everybody else. They're watching what the Fed's doing. You know, and they're kind of like in this little state of, this dreamy little state where they haven't woken up yet. When they wake up to the fact that inflation is here to stay and it's only going to grow larger, well, the bond market's going to react. And when that happens, then the Fed's going to have to do controls. That's called yield curve control. And this is going to be game over, guys, when that happens. You better have your assets that have no counterparty risk. You better have them in your own possession. This game is close to being over, and this bond market's what's going to end the game. It's not going to be a game anymore. Game they're playing, this is going to end the games. And not long from now. Okay, what do we got here? Dollar index, 95.47 and going along sideways today. More or less going along sideways, but with a lot of volatility. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the very next episode. Bye-bye.